to
Yep.
get out. He's good to
We welcome everyone to the November Local Planning Committee meeting. Garrett, our vice chair, is away, but we do have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you, Barbara, for taking the minutes. We missed you last month. But
Well, I'd like to say I missed Joel too, but I was in the Adirondacks, so I didn't.
thank you for your service, and thank you,
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim, for
Yes,
taking
thank
the
you, Jim.
minutes
Jim,
for.
we missed you the
for-
most.
Halfway through that, I didn't
October.
know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Oh, you did well.
Oh, you did it.
well. Thank you.
You did good.
And we extend our sympathies, Barbara, to you, and
Yeah.
lots of love
Yeah.
and hugs. Thank you for being here. Oh, and Pete Gorey. Nice. Committee member Pete Gorey, leveraging technology. That's wonderful. So just of note, we'll have to make sure we do a roll call if we vote on anything by name, since Pete is participating virtually.
Can you hear us?
He's good. I'm sure he can. He's good.
Can't
Pete?
you tell?
He'll come. Yeah, he's
As far as
okay.
Joyce says he's good, so he's good.
I have faith that Pete will figure it out. Okay, trucking along. Agenda A, item A on the agenda, review and approve the meeting minutes from 10/3/2023. Those were distributed via email.
Move approval.
Get a second?
Second.
We got a roll call vote for that. Ed, I messed it up last time. We have to say our names, right?
You're supposed to call the roll.
Oh, Ed.
Aye.
Okay. David.
Aye.
Margot. Joyce. Aye. Jim, aye. Barbara.
Aye.
Bernadette. And Pete, would you like to participate? Yes. All right.
Hi, hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, we
Aye.
can, Pete. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
You passed the name
Yep.
test.
So I know everyone's name, but Ed really held me to task last time. It's hard, man. All right, so the minutes passed unanimously. So update in case anyone didn't see it, item B, we have a new Harwich Town planner. Her name is Christine Flynn. She's coming to us from Martha's Vineyard. She starts on November 13th. I believe she's going to be working remotely for the first few weeks. I have her on my calendar, so on November 13th, we'll get an email. We will introduce ourselves. We are delighted, so that's exciting.
Everybody be nice to her.
Yes. I believe Sharon,
We've always been nice to
we're nice
Well,
to
I
everyone.
don't think we're the problem.
No, I don't think we are, but even so.
We'll be extra nice. Sharon, our consultant from Tig & Bond. Oh, here's Brian. I knew he would be here. From Tig & Bond, I believe, is going to be joining us this evening. So we'll keep trucking along with that. Follow up to the Harwich Cranberry Festival outreach on October 21st and 22nd. Brian took the lead on that. Thank you. Saturday was very abysmal weather. It was raining sideways. Oh, you can keep the lollipops. We can spread the lollipops around. Sunday was much more glorious weather. We got some people to come by and fill out cards. One lady came up to me with her teenage son and said, "Oh, you're the planning lady," and took 2 cards. That's me, I guess. And filled out some cards. We socialized. Talked to one of the police sergeants. We talked to Angie Chilaka from the Children's Fund. I think you guys all socialized. Ed was there.
You're in there.
Yeah. Right up with that, and that's a farther item in the agenda, but we are up to close to 298 responses to our pop-up cards, so credit to all of you. We were having so much fun. I forgot to take pictures. I'm sorry.
I forgot as well.
Because we were having fun. Lollipops, talking to dogs and stuff, so it was good. Item D on the agenda, Margot and Barbara as part. Oh, go ahead, please. Please.
I was looking at the spreadsheet last night.
Yes.
I did notice, though, that just a little over half of the responses on the survey came in after the Cranberry Fest. And I would say that three
nice.
things happened. One, we were spreading the word, but it was the Harwich Conservation Trust email that went out.
Yes.
And it was also the Chamber of Commerce email. And there may have been others, but those are 2 that I was aware of. So I just wanted to
We're doing
make
it.
sure, make mention that that word spread. And it was
Those
very
lists are getting the word out, and thank you for taking the lead on the Chamber of Commerce list. That was awesome. And then I think Margot pointed it out to me about the Conservation Commission list, or Conservation Trust, excuse me.
Yeah.
Important distinction. That was like benevolent local comprehensive plan. Ferries took that and sent out a very nice email. So we that was great. Ferries and gnomes
'cause-
appreciate spreading the word. So they did that on their own. So that was
I'm a
great.
data geek, I was getting in there and
Yeah.
saying, okay, how many
Yeah.
came in since the 22nd?
Yep. So that's awesome. And when we get to item F, I have some robust discussion about that. Anything else about the Cranberry Festival?
That was half survey.
It's all right. Thank you, Brian, for the table and all that. It was good. Really
Thank
good.
Barb for the tent.
As part of the
Flying away.
ongoing visioning process, Margot and Barbara met with representatives from the Harbridge Community Organization. Thank you for taking the lead on that.
And what is the Harwich Community Organization?
I'll let Margot and Barbara take it.
Okay, this is the group that Ray Gottwald
Oh, okay.
pulled together in
That's
the
what I thought.
summer.
Yep.
And they've had a few meetings, and we've got a couple members of the group here tonight. Barbara and I met with Ray and Jackie Edston, who is the town's representative on the Cape Cod Commission and also a professional planner by training. And we met with Denise Clifford and Mary Jones, Mary Jones. And they were basically just telling us about their concerns about what's happening with growth and development, particularly in East Harwich, because that seems to be the place that we're seeing the most subdivision activity right now. I think that their group is very interested in seeing if it's possible to take some kind of a pause in the development process to do some better planning. They had some specific ideas about, zoning changes that they might want to pursue. We spent a fair amount of time talking about the grandfathering provisions of the State Zoning Act, which, for those of you who are uninitiated to that, put a lot of constraints on what towns can do with zoning changes. There's Sharon.
Like acutely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Massachusetts, I'll never forget when I first moved to Massachusetts, and I was hired to be the director of planning in Chatham back in the mid-'80s. And one of the members of the planning board, who was also an attorney, Jack Farrell, sat down with me and started to try to explain to me all of the grandfathering provisions of Chapter 40A. And my jaw was on the floor, because I had never heard of anything like that in any other state that I had worked in. When you live here long enough, you can sort of get used to it, but there are extensive protections, both for single-family lots and for subdivisions. And so you have to really think about that before pursuing any kind of a growth management program, because you could actually have the opposite effect of what you want to have. So we talked about that a bit. We talked about some of the issues with public transparency of the leadership in town, and people's participation and notice for public meetings. And I think there's concern about that as well, that in some instances with a couple of the subdivisions in East Harwich, they were apparently subdivisions that had been approved a long time ago, but not built. And the neighbors really didn't know until the bulldozers arrived that was about to happen. And so
Is there an expiration of subdivisions in Harwich?
I don't believe so. I
No.
know there's expiration of site plans, I don't believe there's expiration of subdivisions.
Yeah, I think once you have an approved subdivision, it's,
I, just for public debate, that has not been my experience. So but there may be some nuance, and maybe is a great just for our committee and deliberation, maybe a good question for our new planner or for Sharon. And it may have to do with how the original subdivision was, done, but.
If
Or
it
what?
was a planned development, that would be different. If it was just ordinary subdivision, that's where my understanding is that it does not have a time limit. But, we can certainly find out. There's
I
gonna be
just
an
put
answer
that out
to
there for discussion, and it may have to do with
There-
minimum acreage or,
well, there are hoops that you have to jump through, with the planning board to, before you can start selling lots, you've got to make sure that you've got, an approved road plan and whatever utilities and
Yeah.
those kinds of things. So there.
fire
there-
hydrants and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but,
those are mostly boilerplate items
Yeah.
that don't involve public notice and so forth.
no, they don't. They
But what
don't.
about clearing land? Do you have?
Well, that's.
That was,
I-
that was a
one
big
of the
discussion
issues
item.
Tree
that
moratorium,
I
that
think,
meeting we
uh,
went to,
we
we
talked about.
don't
And
know.
land clearing and in particular, just losing, and some of these subdivisions, they just clear cut.
Right, right. I
And,
mean, that's
wall to wall. And for the neighbors, that's pretty jarring.
That's the key milestone.
Yeah, and we also talked about something that we've talked about here many times, which is, a lot of trophy houses are being built that are basically for, wealthy people oftentimes from off Cape, to have their second homes here. Meanwhile, we have a big affordable housing problem in town. So those were, some of the things that we talked about. Those folks are here, and Barbara, you can probably augment that's my recollection of what we talked about.
No, that was a good job on the recap. The only other thing that they did bring up, we discussed, was the fact that even this subdivision or development, whatever this big, that they're putting in and everything, they're still going on septic. They're not being required at this point to tie into the wastewater and stuff, probably because of locations. So here we have, and I believe, and you all can correct me, but it went from 5 lots down to 3 lots, or 6 lots down to 3, or something like that, but larger houses as a result. So at least we have a little less dense. However, larger houses, so of course you're gonna have more tie-in and stuff. And the other item that, everybody talked about as well, once they do hook up to wastewater, to the wastewater system, is that gonna stop anybody from renting out an Airbnb for 20 people to be there instead of 10 people because of the number of bedrooms and that type of thing? So it's all tied in, as we said, all this other time, to wastewater, and it appears that East Harwich is on the cutting edge within town on some of this stuff that's happening, and I think their thoughts on pausing the development and permitting and planning, all that, is till we all get a better grasp on where we're going with everything that's been happening since right before COVID and during COVID with housing and people here, and obviously all that happened with less affordable housing at the same time, so.
So thank you for that visioning work, which, part of the, just a second, David, the part of the work of the committee is to really be transparent in documenting that vision process. So, we're doing this on the Google Drive. If you need help on doing that, there's everyone who's met with their areas of expertise it's on the Google Drive. If you need help, Garrett or I will help you with that. There's a file, folder, visioning process. You can just, put kind of a summary of your notes, date, who you met with, and that's important in all of this work. David, did you have a comment before I move to E,
Sure.
which is related?
Our group deals a lot in generalities. We can make comments about growth, we can make comments about trophy homes. the topic of land clearing has come up and generated a response amongst committee members very frequently in the few months that we've been together. So and it may be too early, but I want to make sure that we get to a point where we can explore some of these strategies in more detail.
I agree with you, particularly as it's supported, we have, I think, been successful. We're holding ourselves to a pretty high standard and being maybe agnostic and in this visioning process really listening. But exactly to your point with the pop-up visioning cards, there's a lot of repetition about this, of concern. This isn't just our ideas. There's a lot of support from this, and we eventually have to have an opinion. That's the point of the visioning process, right? So, yes, I think the point of deliberation, Sharon's going to talk with us a little bit about that, about in the coming months, about deliberation. It relates, I think, to the survey, about our specific survey, some things that we're asking about in more depth that will contribute to that deliberation. So, yes. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, to David's point, one of the members of the group has actually pulled together examples of a number of different ways different towns have approached vegetation management in development. And once you show me how to load stuff onto the Google Drive, I'll put it there.
Awesome.
But
Awesome.
it still befuddles me.
That's okay. That's okay. And not to jump ahead, but we do in the survey have a question about like a tree cutting effort. What's the appetite around that? But we'll get to that. So with that specific example of the visioning process, item E on the agenda, a couple things. I wanted to.
Can I ask?
Oh, yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead, Pete.
Good. Sorry, thanks. One other thought, and I know we are trying to solicit input from the, if you will, the development community. I just think, and I applaud what they're doing with this community organization, but I think we should make a concerted effort to at least reach out to some or several, ideally several, of the developers of such types of homes and communities, because I think that they not only should have a seat at the table, I think our charge, and early on we talked about, chambers of commerce, the construction community, which has its own labor issues, but the development community has to have an opportunity to say what they feel about these, the same responses, right? Because, forget about the commercial aspect or, the free market aspects that we're faced with. Folks are buying land and there are property rights that we need to be cognizant of. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Pete, you know what happens on this committee when you have a good idea? Your name gets put next to it. Would you like to? Do you have some bandwidth for that, maybe?
I do. I want to. Thankfully, I'm no longer really practicing real estate actively, so I'm happy. I just wouldn't want to feel conflicted because of some of the projects nearby to my home.
Yeah.
But
No, I hear you. And maybe there's a way to take somebody with you. I don't know if somebody.
Yeah. I think we said we should always have.
All right. So Ed's raising his hand. I love it. Pete and Ed.
Ed, let's grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah, because this is right on my task of the agenda, is to actually go through our SME, our subject matter expert spreadsheet way back. Remember we started doing this?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna, and we're doing it.
Yeah,
we're doing it. I want to just make sure that we revisit it again, and I'm going to go through it and make sure we're getting everybody and make sure the assignments are up to date. So thank you for leading us along.
Just to be specific, I would suggest talking to Eastwood. I would
Yep.
suggest talking to Davenport.
Yep.
And everybody else is a distant third.
Yep. And you get some interesting various perspectives there in terms of approaches and.
Yeah, we don't need to belabor it, but the home buyer because they will be taxpayer, has a seat at this table too. And I know that we're all suggesting that it is we're soliciting and want to be open,
Yeah.
but I think there's a particular type of buyer that wants to be near their parents or whatever, so it's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
know no one in this group,
No,
or in the
and-
public, very few
and-
demonize either, but these are facts. We need to, the
No,
houses
agreed.
are being built and they're being purchased, so we need to be on
Agreed,
it, but
and,
I'll stop there.
and that's the integrity of this process, is to be thorough and open-minded and transparent. And, we're getting it with the survey too, which we'll go through. Like there's some significant, 20%, I think, of, what's the word? Seasonal or, half-time, part-time, there we go. Part-time, residents. But agreed. So I put that down. So real estate developers, Pete and Ed, Eastward and Davenport. Just to go from the top, planning board, which, thinking out loud here so everyone understands, our plan ultimately will have to kind of be approved by the planning board. That's just the sort of the setup from the town. I have shared our work with Duncan Berry. He, as well as sort of what the visioning data is starting to look like. So we're good with that. Zoning will be coming. Just a record of the Board of Selectmen. Obviously, Jeff Handler is our representative to the board. We updated our work with them in September. Water, we've had the water superintendent visit us. That's ongoing and perpetual, and more to do there, as is the housing, land use, conservation. I think, those are our unifying concepts. Sort of specific areas. We had harbors, fishermen. Pete and Barbara had signed up for that. Clergy and nonprofit were Brian. I'll run through it. Town employees, as well as public works, was David and Ed.
Yeah, we said we were going to take an arm's length for a bunch of town employees.
Right.
But we did want to talk to health and public works.
Right, and we also have, I'm just going to note of this, Margot is kindly agreed to work with kind of a liaison from our committee here to town employees about the open space and rec plan, which again, a lot of this is synergistic, like if you're talking, it's happening. Part-time residents, Jim. Historical architecture or historical preservation, that kind of things, was Barbara. Arts, library, and culture is our very own Bernadette. Small business and the Chamber of Commerce, Garrett and Brian are leading the way on how to outreach about that. They're showing us all, and I'm going to have Brian, you talk a little bit about how you've been doing some of that. Schools, kids and teachers, Bernadette, Ed. I've also put my name to that. The survey questions. There's multiple, like, young family, youth, as well as older folks questions, resource questions in there. I think we have an eye towards that. The specific school and education question about, what are your priorities around that? Some of the wording from that, just so you know, comes from the Monomoy School District is doing some strategic planning of their own. I filled out their survey. I stole some of their wording and put it in our questions, so we're not reinventing the wheel, so that can support their efforts because they've got a big strategic planning session going on. Pleasant Bay actually is an interesting Pleasant Bay community boating. David kindly agreed to reach out to them kind of as a interesting example of,
My name was on that one?
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be, because we were talking about resources for working families, regular people. And we were interested in as like a community-based organization that is kind of trying to share Cape Cod resources with locals, i.e. getting kids and elderly and disabled and anybody who wants to out on the
I know
water.
those folks, if you want it. I mean, I can do that.
Yeah, I don't remember volunteering for that one. So
Okay, you don't have to
I'll
be.
pass that one off.
All right, Brian. That's why we're talking about it.
I'll do it as an interview.
Joyce,
Yes.
There's also the rowing group out on Long Pond.
Oh, do you want to do that, Ed? Okay, rowing group. Love it.
Go ahead, we'll do both.
Yeah.
You do that, I'll do the,
Surrounding towns and county, again, like, just thinking about this, that we're gonna have, I mean, it may not be specifically meeting with people in Chatham, but just like having that sense that we're like taking into these perspectives. We had written down Garrett, Margot, Ed, seniors, Jim is all over. Real estate and developers, Pete and Ed, we just talked about that. The Cape Verdean immigrant, LGBTQ, those are very different populations. I'm open to discussion about that. Like, how much of our survey work is penetrating some of those communities, getting there.
Who's doing historic?
Barbara. And then,
There's a couple of real,
Oh, would you ask for?
so let me
the
just,
reason I asked about historic was
Yeah.
there's some real Cape Verdean involvement
ooh, I love that.
with some of the
Right.
history there.
Ooh,
So
if you could, that would be lovely if you
Okay.
wanna, yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah. And this is not binary. Like, we have to kind of keep revisiting this. Harwich is a small town. Like, there is a lot of overlap. So, like, if you're going out into the community with an open mind, and we know our work, and like, a lot of this will happen, but I'm just reviewing it specifically to make sure that we're doing it. And then, of course, something that we're always coming back to, that we're revisiting, is environmental water resources, estuaries, ponds, open space and recreation, coastal resources, regulatory environment, climate change. Yes. With that, I wanted to open it up to, Jim had some questions, a little bit of a communal discussion about what has worked for people in terms of visioning, how they've approached it, what maybe hasn't worked. Jim was looking for some ideas about how to structure things for the seniors. I'm going to hand it over to Brian because he thought about this some.
Let me start by interview. I put together an interview guide that I've already used a couple of times.
Which is on the drive. Yes, it's on the
drive.
Google Drive.
It is
Yes.
on the drive, but I got a couple of hard copies.
Yep. Oh, look at this. Brian prints it out. This is a go team.
I
This is so good. Want to pass one down to Ed?
In fact, I brought it with me when I
Pass
when
them
I used
down.
it.
It's nice to have.
But
Thank you,
it's on
Brian.
the drive. And really, what it is it's the survey questions. Is the
The
key
pop-up questions.
pop-up
Yep. Yeah,
questions. But on the back, what I did was I took some of the key drivers that we've been talking about as what were some of the dominant drivers. And I also went back to the 2011 study and took some of those big blocks. And just, all I used them for were thought joggers. And all we really wanted to hear somebody say in the interview was to try and get the issues out on the table. So those were really issues. What did you see were issues, and what do you see are opportunities? So think about the interview as just really getting that word out. So, and I think that's really all we want in the opening interview. That's interview. Workshop, I think, is something different. Workshop is visioning, and I think that's a different technique to move forward.
So, and I think we've come to deliberation as we keep kind of working on this as a committee, that since we're out and about, socializing, working, participating in the town this fall, that we're doing all this specific subject matter area visioning, recording it best we can, being thorough, being reflective about it. And then with that visioning process and the data, that with the help of Tig and Bond early in the new year, have some specific workshops
Great.
around like types of things, like David's talking about, like specific measures, recommendations, deliberation.
So here's a thought about doing a visioning workshop, and I think we'll probably have a few more of these discussions. Sharon, you probably have some thoughts about how to do this, but from my experience, you have to have a certain number of big themes, and you want to prioritize the themes because you can't attack all of them. So one of the things that I was kicking around, because we really hadn't really zeroed in on what we thought were our prioritized big themes. So I was sitting at my computer one night and I said, let me ask ChatGPT what ChatGPT thought were the ultimate building blocks. Actually, I've used it quite frequently. And it listed out 20 building blocks for what they thought were the ideal set of building blocks for a well-tuned community. And it's an interesting set of things. There's some things we may not think are appropriate, and some things we probably need to highly consider. I mean, it's actually worth taking a look at. AI is actually pretty powerful. And we would probably come to many of these things ourselves. So anyway,
Yeah.
for the sake of argument, you could take a look at those 20, and you can have one technique of a workshop could be, let's look at all 20 of those things, put it up on a board, and say, give people 5 stickies and
Notes.
say,
Yep.
okay, how well do you think, let me think of the question. How well do we do these today? What are our, top to bottom, and how important are they? And then you look at the gap between how well do we perform them and how much do we need them? And then you really zero in on the ones that have the biggest gaps.
And I think our the timing of our survey data can make that even more specific in terms of like what particular tools and
And really what the building blocks are. The
Right.
thing that got me moving on the building block terminology was there was an article in the Cape Cod Chronicle about the Brewster Plan. And the Brewster Plan used the term building blocks, and I thought, okay, I'm allowed to use that term. Sometimes, you get accused of using
you're making up.
consultancy terms.
Yes,
that
yeah.
People check
Making
out.
up.
But, I mean, that's a term that we're, comfortable, that I'm comfortable using. I like also, we could use a set, say for the sake of argument, you were to use more than what we even have in our survey that's going out today, because we didn't, like, for example, here's a couple of things that ChatGPT might have. Equity and inclusivity. And we might not be as worried about that because we might do that well, but it's a building block. So we didn't really have to drill in on our survey because we're not worried about it. So it's an important factor. It's a factor that we have in our foundation.
It's in our
So,
sights,
Yeah, so it actually recognizes that it's something that's important, but it's one that we don't really have to, it's there, we know it's there, but for the sake of our visioning workshop, we're gonna spend more time on affordable housing, or, I believe Garrett put this out into the.
It is in the drive. It is.
Okay.
Jim, so you want to have an event with the seniors. Tell us what you're thinking about, what seems like stumbling blocks. Maybe we can.
Yeah, and are you always
help.
looking for advice? And there's,
Yeah.
in some ways, the way I've thought about this, there's 2 ways to go, and both have pros and cons. I mean, one way that I'd be very comfortable with is just to engage people who interact with older adults and are part of that world, and sort of get them together for 3 or 4 hours and have a sort of little mini retreat to say, what should we as a town be doing? And those people come, they're in the Council on Aging, they're in the community center, the fire department amazingly knows a lot about older adults, the library knows a lot about older adults, but also providers of both, of medical care and of long-term care, those places, while they're also trying to make a lot of money, they do understand what some of the needs are. And then places like Nauset Neighbors or the Pantry, there are places that do. But anyway, so you could have a nice, seems like something that could be done before the end of the year too, which might be nice. But the second way of going is to actually do a survey for older adults, and maybe we should do that anyway. But my concern with that though is that, they say there's 2 types of older adults. There's young older adults who younger than 75, and then people who are 75 to 105. And in some ways, you learn a lot from the 75 to 105, but it's hard to get to that. And so then you end up getting the healthy people who are just worrying about is it a big enough golf course, and that's not exactly what you want the discussion to be.
So, my thought on that, and I'd like, other people to jump in, we have this pretty high quality survey tool that is designed for kind of everybody. And maybe, thinking about how there's going to be a paper copy. So thinking about how you could put a paper copy into the hands No,
so many people
of
who
these
are-
older folks that are coming to the community center or, the Council on Aging. So if you wanna, we've gotten a fair number of those little cards, or pop-up cards, just written on it. And if you're looking at the handwriting, some are young, some are old, some are in between. So if you, when we have the paper version of the survey that, Sharon will help us with, have the paper version, I think making sure that it gets at the community center, maybe on the Council of Aging. I don't think you have to have a singular survey for the elderly only, because I think the survey is pretty well done, that you're gonna get your questions there.
I would agree with you,
Yeah.
because otherwise you can't really
No,
analyze it.
yeah.
If you
This
have
is,
different questions, then there's no way to really understand
But you,
what that
see,
population.
that's right, but what you're not going to get, which you might from bringing 10 or 12 people together to talk about these things, is just, addressing some of the difficult questions.
we'll do both.
Yeah, do
Can't you
both.
bring your 10 and 12
Okay,
people
we-
together? Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
yeah.
And by the way, when I mentioned the workshop and interview workshop, you can have a workshop on identifying the issues. There can be multiple workshops. And we talked about that with our Chamber of Commerce. But when we've kind of decided to streamline it and aim towards more of a visioning workshop. But there's no reason you can't have multiple.
Why don't you have an event, Jim? Take some notes, use the write-up, use
Yeah,
this
that's
little
good.
guide as to get started, try and have maybe someone take some notes for you. And and then, yeah.
We did this like about maybe 2 years ago now, and we had about 15 people for a day, and it brought a lot, and it also brought them together, so.
I was at that.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
It's great.
So if any of you would, I'll send out an invitation to all of
Mm-hmm.
you. It'd be nice that at least one other person than me, was there and could help me say what really happened.
I think you should feel empowered to do that.
Okay. Then my other question though is, we were talking about timelines, and I think all of us panicked as you went through, I think you went through the timelines, but do we really want to try and get these things done by the end of this year? Or-
So we can comment on that. I think it's continuous. Like I would think it doesn't have to be perfect. Just like getting your some representatives together and feeling like you're getting the issues. You can, if there's unanswered questions, to Brian's point, you can always go back and do it again. But I think it would be nice to. I mean, January is not a great time to seek out the elderly either. So.
Well, it's possible we could do this,
Have a couple,
together
yeah.
even before.
Yeah, I mean, can you do it? I mean, I was looking at the Council on Aging events online, and it was an awesome set of events. It was like a Thanksgiving lunch. It was some public safety stuff. It was minimizing fall risk. I don't know why you could kind of dovetail to those. They're already having some meetings already. There's some things that bring people to the, yeah.
Yeah, and some of this, by talking to some of these older folks, you get more than just a survey.
Agreed. I think it's both. Yeah.
Okay, good. I appreciate the help.
Other ways people are thinking about doing their visioning that they want to share? You don't have to. It's just okay. If anyone has good ideas, send them along. But I think it's organic.
Yeah, let me just add to with regard to the small business, we're going to build towards probably a single visioning session.
Oh, cool.
But we're probably going to do it and advertise it, right? Let people know we're doing it, even though it's going to be geared towards small business. I think the risk is as we let other people know we're doing it, my fear is that more people will come into it, but we certainly want to get the small business perspective. I don't know how else to do it
Yeah.
other than to lay it out that way.
I could say like with a focus on hearing,
Yeah.
perspective from.
And then,
small business,
what we'll do is we'll have the, breakouts by tables, we'll do the yellow stickies, and then we're gonna drill down and,
Love
and probably have enough time to drill down into the top 5 or 6 or 7.
Thank you.
Of what we think are the right building blocks. But in order to get to the, time to execute that workshop, talk about the plan, I wanna make sure that we're comfortable enough that we know what those building blocks are. So back to the
Yeah, you know, and I would say there's not like a right or wrong reason. I think like way to do it. Like Brian's approach probably makes sense for the business community, and to your point, Jim, like conversationally with some older adults sitting around at an event, I think those are both. There's not a right or wrong way to do that. That they both are probably group appropriate. You know,
I think at this point, I would probably swap out the Chat GPT and use the categories that we're now using for our deep dive survey.
right.
Joyce, are we approaching, or how are we handling town employees in our particular area?
So, go ahead, David. I have thoughts, but David can
Well,
say it.
What I'm concerned about is, I don't think we should be getting into how's your job going, what's it like with this town administration. We got to stay away from all that. There's some
Because that's
town-
not actually in our
No,
comprehensive plan.
There's some
Yep.
town employees I think are very important. Subject areas such as public works, people tied into boards such as conservation, such as health, planning. So I think we have to hit the town employees connected to those boards.
Right.
But
That's what I'm asking about.
But I guess finance, I'm not so sure about, just building.
We'll
a
get
building
there with
department.
the planner. You know, like the planner may have some thoughts about finance that might be very sophisticated.
But
you
David,
know?
don't you want to do the same approach where you ask them to vet what they think are the most important building blocks, where they think the biggest gaps are? So it's, to me, it's the same technique.
Okay.
What's their perspective of the greatest gaps and the greatest need? And then drill down into what they see are the needs.
And
It
is
may be
about-
within their purview, and it may be a conservation item, it may be.
Well, Amy kind of did that when she was here, if you remember right,
Yeah.
you know, talking about, no bodies, no money, yep, blah, 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 we need all of this and stuff. So I guess my question is, I don't want to step on toes, or since you have all this open meeting, blah, 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 and everything like that, I mean, is it okay to contact?
So is there? I mean, so your purview, Barbara,
It's a
is
historic.
is historic. Is there somebody in particular that stands out to you?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is it okay for me to contact either Mary or somebody else on the board to talk about some of the issues that they're finding with historic?
I think the boards, such as historic, there's no real staff person
No, I know.
with that board. But I think the board itself is absolutely relevant.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's very appropriate. And so, in terms of the open meeting law, which I've gone through with a fine tooth comb, but I'm always open to suggestion or insights. But I have, we really try to pay attention to that. That it's very appropriate for you, as part of this visioning process that is on the record, to contact, the chair of that historical board and sit and have a open-ended conversation, and take some notes, and that's part of the visioning process. And we do not violate, as I understand it, it's been explained to me and taught to me, open meeting.
No quorum.
Correct. It's all about the quorum.
I just wanted to
Yep.
make sure that,
Yep.
Barbara, I'd also suggest you talk to the building commissioner, because when a project comes in and it's an older building, he's the one that makes that initial determination of where it gets diverted to.
And you're collecting information.
right,
Margot.
thank you.
The committee that I've been asked to sit in on for the open space and recreation plan includes representatives, town employees from Conservation, Council on Aging, the Harbor Master, Public Works, the Natural Resource Director, the Planning Department, the Community Center, the Assistant Town Manager, and Mike Locke as well from the Trust. So we're going to be hitting,
A lot of this is synergistic. Again, being out in the community, being a good citizen, like keeping an open,
that's a good question, I'll have to ask.
keep coming back here. We're supporting one another. We're supporting the process, communicating in between meetings in terms of like email. It's okay to ask a question. We're not deliberating on email, but it's okay for a question, and I can respond, and Sharon can respond, and things like that. Okay, with that, we talked about the visioning process. I'd like to blow through F and H pretty quickly, and then leave the rest of the time for G and I for Sharon. So, F is review of so we've gotten 298 responses. Those are just continue for the pop-up questions. Those have continued to just accumulate, and that's fine. That can stay open. Our focus is going to naturally transition to the in-depth survey. My question to the, so you can still distribute that QR code, you can still distribute in your work in the community, that simple, like maybe the elderly, that's better suited to them, that little link or that little card, you could have the cards, that we can still have some cards. We can still use that. Older adults is a better term. I shouldn't use the term elderly. Older adults. I know. I mean it. I love our older citizens. I mean it well, but so we can still use that. It doesn't expire. But my question for the committee is there definitely, as we participate in the community, a repeated sense of, if anyone would like a lollipop, please share this with us. And I think it's looking at it, there's nothing that doesn't need to be shared there. And ideas for how you would like to share that, like at a point, I think we can go ahead and kind of do it now. Thoughts about that?
Well, you could, just do it.
Just do it. Okay.
Share the data as it's in
Yeah.
the thing here, but it would be interesting. I don't know if anybody has the patience to do this.
I sat down and read it top to bottom
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And found it fascinating.
It is fascinating.
I
It is
agree.
extremely high quality.
Right.
Yes.
I'm sure, if somebody could put some analysis into, like, the first question, the second question about categories of things that come up most often.
So Garrett did. It's interesting. We both kind of did it. I did it. There's like for a long time. There's word cloud software that's been available where you just take the Excel file and it boom creates a word cloud, which is some sort of version of AI, and it works on repetition and then creates like a little piece of art that you can see. Big words come up. And I actually did that for the Board of Selectmen presentation, and this is rudimentary analysis, very crude, but, it's community, environment, water, housing. Okay. Garrett did a different version of it with like sort of, like a more formal chat GPT thing, which kind of came up with the same. My sense was that we could just, save it as the Excel spreadsheet or as a PDF, something that's readable, and put it on our website, our town website. These are the responses as of this date. We continue to accumulate. If you'd like to respond, here's the link. And then we can publicize that, on all the ways we do.
Yeah.
We could actually also, should we make a few printed copies available? The planning office?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
probably.
think that makes sense. I mean, it's very readable in
I think
the
it is too,
spreadsheet that
with
you
the formatted
created.
version, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's
that
very
worked out.
readable.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's,
thank you for doing that.
Okay, but we should for our more analog friends, we'll put some a lot of people go through there, so we're going to share that data, and put paper copies there. Okay.
One of the things I heard at the Cranberry Festival was that, and we talked about it. I
Thank you
think
for your
2 months
tent,
ago.
by the way. It was an amazing tent.
Oh,
Yeah.
was that people have a hard time finding us.
I think so. Garrett's working on that, and
Okay.
we covered this a little bit
I
the
know
last
too
meeting.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Garrett's working on it. They're if you Google Harwich Local Planning Committee, which I do all the time because it comes up to our minutes and agenda, so it's like I can always find it. It does come up. But Garrett has been the lovely points person. He's on vacation this month, or this week, about trying to build out our website a little bit. And I think this would actually be kind of a cool thing to build out. I don't think there's any downside, Marco. I went through it with a fine tooth comb, but is there anything? No one was named. There was nothing like
No, nothing.
inappropriate
Nope.
or hurtful or untrue or
There were a number of, on the right-hand side, it was really nice. There weren't anything nasty or anything
Right.
against us, and there were a few that were like, thank you for doing
Yes,
this.
yes.
It was so nice to feel
Yes,
like,
yes. Everyone
I-
was
I-
behaving
I-
themselves.
Well, and I said this to you at an earlier time, that this always would be a lengthy 2-year kind of process, and it's gonna turn into more like 3.5 because of, and not to sound like we're whining or complaining, but we've had, it's been like a cha-cha. We get one step forward, and then we don't have a planner, and then we got a planner, and then we didn't. And it has to be done right, not fast. And fast in this case is probably going to be long. And it feels, sometimes I feel like, as people are starting to hear about it, they're like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? It's like, not much yet. I mean,
And this
at
is,
some
you can,
point,
feel free to, like, we'll continue to collect
Yeah.
this in perpetuity. There's no reason to shut it down. Like I said, we're actually going to focus our promotion efforts on the in-depth survey questions. So, okay, so I will share to the socials, which, is the way to get,
Before you print,
Yes,
I noticed the headers weren't on every page. so
okay. Oh,
I'm going to give you another copy.
thank you.
All right, thanks.
Go team. Go ahead.
But it was,
Doing it right.
As to Barbara's point about people saying we're hard to find, if you're of the computer savvy that you Google things, it's easy.
Yeah, it is. I use it all the time to come back for it. Yeah.
There's others people that say, oh, well, I should go on the town website and it should be right there. Well, it's not, and nothing is right there.
I think that's what most of them were talking about,
Yeah.
Ed, was
It
they
is
had
not
done on
an
the
easy
website. and-
site
yeah,
to
the
find
town's
stuff.
website is,
Right.
not user-friendly and.
Which
in
we're
need
not
of
going to fix
overhaul.
that,
But you
but
can, you just Google it and it'll take you right there.
Okay. To that end, so we've topped off F. Anyone can feel free to share it anyway. If you want to, share it with your neighbors
So
or
we're
anything.
still handing out cards, correct?
Yeah.
For how long?
Well, the survey is gonna go. I've set this arbitrary deadline, but we're gonna do it, November 13th for our survey questions. This is for our in-depth survey. So this is H. We're gonna go to H
Like Monday?
now. Yeah, I'm holding. Recording this Tigenbon's feet to the fire a little bit. So for H, so you've all gotten the survey questions. I don't want to debate the language or anything here because we've done that the last few sessions. Thank you to Ed and David for really taking a deep dive on this. A word about the process. These survey questions some of them are specifically worded around housing, sort of best practices to meet some metrics for the housing production plan, for the open space recreation plan. We've also spent a lot of deliberation time and thought and love and sweat in making sure that they are appropriate to the community, both our sense of the community and what we have heard in the pop-up visioning process, so I don't want to open that up to too much debate, the survey questions, but is there anything profoundly we're missing?
I got one.
Okay, Brian, hit me.
Only because it might confuse the person on how to fill it out.
Okay,
The wording on 1 and 2,
yes.
we're looking for them to rank them 1 through 5.
So, correct.
You
So,
don't
so,
want to
so,
keep going.
correct. So, and I, having a little bit of word, the reason I'm pushing Tigenbon a little bit about this is we've got the questions, we've got the material. Whoever on Sharon's end is going to be putting this into SurveyMonkey, I will be working with them very closely. It is hard. I've done it a lot. We've got to test it. You're all going to be asked to testing it. It's a very powerful program. I don't know who on your team is going to be doing it, but okay. So you'll have to connect them and I and Garrett and you directly. It works great. It's very precise. To your point of how the options are put in and it's like the double negative logic of computer code and stuff like that. but-
That is meant to be rank order.
Correct. And so if anything doesn't look quite right on that, don't worry, we'll get that because it's not going to be there'll be a paper copy, but it's not going to look like this Word paper copy.
That was it?
I think it's good. We got real no one's ever asked before. It's very novel, very specific data about housing, very specific data about the environment, development, school, older adults, younger adults, some things that are a little persnickety, but we have to do for open space about parking and stuff like that, or
There was one other, let me just get to it.
there's some open-ended questions. So if we're missing anything glaring,
would it be all right to share this with the folks who are working on the open space?
Sure.
Because I think they're contemplating a survey.
Share it. I'm not sure that I would like really open it up to debate, but no. But if this helps them, yeah, we're happy to share the data. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the open space survey, there's a specific requirement for its own, that plan to have its own survey.
Right.
So we do have that in draft form, but we haven't shared it out yet with the committee. They just started meeting, as you know. So, that will have much more detail than this survey will about open space.
Yeah, but 2 for 1. If they can do something good with this, please
Yeah.
feel free.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
if you
We
want
don't own
them
it.
to
Yeah.
have time to comment on it, or just to before it
I
goes
just
out?
thought it'd be good
Just to be aware of
just to
what.
be aware
Oh,
Yeah.
of
sure.
what
Oh,
we're doing.
of
and-
course.
And the timing of it too, because it could be confusing for the public to be getting these 2 different surveys and
We're gonna
Right.
beat them. No, I mean, I just, so we're gonna figure it out, right? Like, there isn't a perfect way in the town to distribute this. A lot of it is gonna be our goodwill, your friends, the socials. Like, I've tried to kind of broach could we use like the emergency-wide, town notification thing? There's been a little, we can pick this up with the planner when she comes and stuff like that, but.
Here's my one other question.
Yes,
Then
Brian.
Under community vision,
Yes,
question number 4,
yes,
it struck me that we have senior housing,
yes.
but we don't have affordable.
Nope, the ship has sailed on that, Brian. I'm gonna shut that down a little bit, because there's some explanation above that about, and I give total credit to Dave and Ed for clarifying that, there's a little language above it about prioritized housing, which may or not include state-defined affordable housing, and Karen helped us with some of those questions. So we're gonna dodge and weave the big A affordable question housing while also trying to get some specific sense of sentiment in the community.
I wouldn't be surprised that we get some in the other.
Yeah, and they can include that. Yeah, Bernadette.
Just on the demographics that we
Yes.
asked for at the end,
Yes.
I noticed when it asks what your employment status is, it does ask if you're under 18, and then it doesn't give an option for student, it says unemployed. I should say maybe unemployed/student, because
Sure.
if it just says, if I were student,
Yes.
and that's the only option I had to give was I was unemployed,
Sure.
that sounds like we have, a lot of unemployed people in town. So I don't know how many under 18s.
Would you put it on the same line?
I thought it could be.
You could have a different one.
/unemployed or.
Or you can have student. No,
Whichever,
we like
you know,
student.
maybe you wanna
We'll make
break
it a
it out
second.
so
We'll
we
make it a
see.
second one.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many under
Separate line.
18-year-olds or how
Yeah,
many
yeah.
full-time students will.
No, we can change that. That's an easy one.
I would put it some.
Yeah, it seems like it was a category missing there. We don't want it to.
Okay. So I'll keep you posted. It's gonna be great.
Right.
Thank you for everyone's. And to be honest, like, it can be, despite printing some copies, it can be changed in real time. So if there's like something obviously like, oh God, we screwed that up, like we can change it. Cool. All right, Sharon, I was going to turn it over to you. G and I. So the timeline, I think you were Brian was asking about a little, not to put it on Brian, but like,
Receive it? Because
I-
I sent that some time ago, so. as
did
a
I
draft.
distribute it?
No, I
Timelines?
don't think so.
No.
Oh, bad,
Well,
okay.
if there was a
Bad
way
me.
for me to connect or to send it,
Add
to.
Rowan.
Bad. I can email it right now while you're talking.
You
So
have it?
she did create I do. She did create the Chevron thing. Thank you. And just acknowledging, I appreciate your sense of the timeline, and we are respectful of that. And then, but there are also like, we're gonna have our new planner, and we're holding it all kind of lightly in terms of what the threshold is for special town meeting and stuff like that. So we
Understood.
keep trucking forward. I think I will email right now while you're talking the Chevron. I think we have senses where if we're getting wiser and wiser as a committee and deliberation is next, right? And we're emerging with data. Deliberation is next. And so you had the thought of maybe talking about specific ways of that. So I think lead us there.
Okay, so, we'll hold off on the timeline
I'll
for
just,
now.
I'll just email it right
Okay,
now.
and I sent just earlier this afternoon, I apologize, I didn't send it sooner, a brief PowerPoint.
I'll send both. Here it
Okay,
comes.
so I guess we'll hold on. Well, while we're doing that, just a few updates. So on the open space and recreation plan, Margot, I don't know if you were able to attend, but there was a kickoff meeting.
No, I
Okay.
wasn't. So,
I think it was last week. So a committee has been assembled, which is great. The conservation agent is, leading that up, heading that up, which is great, and working with our staff, so that's awesome. And so 6 people attended that kickoff meeting. I think there were a few folks absent, but Mike Locke was there as well. So they're off to a good start with that, having formed a committee. And the committee was given some homework, which is to read the older plan, the 2015 plan. So off to a good start with that work getting underway. As I said, we do have a draft survey for the open space effort prepared. We need to review it further in-house, then get it to, the committee and the staff to take a review and kind of compare it to the overall survey too. We don't want to duplicate necessarily, so we'll take a look at both surveys now that we have the LCP survey.
Our line has been drawn in the sand. No, I'm joking.
hard
But
line, yes,
yeah, no, I mean, but
6
like,
days
we're just gonna commit to something and then,
No, it's
Yeah.
good, it's fine, we can definitely meet that timeline to get you, like,
Yeah.
the first, the first version in SurveyMonkey, and then obviously it does have to be tested by.
it's
you know,
painful, but it's good.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
it's okay, it's a good idea, because you don't want to be sending this out to thousands of people.
No.
And not having vetted it first.
It's
So-
it's called the logic of the survey is, and I'm sure your person will be great, but we have
She
to
is.
like
She's-
test it.
She's
Yeah.
great, she's done it several times now,
Awesome.
so she'll look forward to working with you.
It's gonna be great.
The other update that I have is on the housing production plan, and Karen Sonnerborg has been working away on that. She actually just submitted, it was last week, but I didn't receive it because of some block in our emails, but I do have now a draft needs assessment, so she's right on schedule. There will be some gaps in it right now because she needs some additional data from us, and she's been trying to reach out to some folks and still having a little bit of difficulty. I think the Council on Aging, she hasn't been able to reach anyone there. But she's
to
working
Jim.
with Brianna on that effort primarily, and things are going well on that side as well. So,
And I just forwarded the Chevron and I forwarded the PowerPoint, so it's in your email if you're able to.
so wherever you want to start, just let me know, and we'll talk about either one.
Yeah, the PowerPoint, but not the other one.
Yeah, so I think we went, okay, let's say, briefly the Chevron, just to kind of hold it lightly, because I don't want everyone to get like really stuck on that, about the timeline, is that because, we have a new town planner that's coming, which is wonderful, who's going to have opinions and thoughts and, expertise, and we're grateful. So just briefly, Sharon came on in June 2023. We're right at a year in terms of our deliberation as a committee. And you can see in this little line that the map that a very ambitious goal was to have a final local comprehensive plan by November 2024. We'll see.
Initial charge, or
Yeah.
what are,
No,
That didn't get
yeah,
sent.
we didn't get the Chevron.
Timeline.
It's timeline. It's called Harwich LCP timeline.
Didn't get it.
I just got it.
nothing that looks like
Got
this?
the PowerPoint.
Got the PowerPoint.
Got the
Oh,
PowerPoint.
well then
How about the other one
Not
came in
yet
after?
gotten the other one.
I guess mine is faster than yours, man.
Well, I thought it maybe it was going to be there.
it's not too deep, guys. We don't have to lose our mind, but it's okay.
Well,
It's very nice.
I can walk through it.
Just, yeah.
Yeah,
Right, so,
yeah.
so time bomb, we started, this past June. And yes, the goal at this point is to have a final local comprehensive plan for town meeting in November 2024.
Just-
So,
But
yeah.
there is not a town meeting in November 2024.
No,
It would be a
but-
special
but it
meeting,
was-
yeah.
it would be a special town
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
So, leading up to that, so there are a lot of moving parts, as we know. The comprehensive plan itself, the open space and recreation plan, and the housing production plan. So, this month, the goal, and again, these are goals that we're shooting for. One is to open the community survey for the LCP and to have the draft housing needs assessment. So we're on target, in November. It's early November right now. There's still some time
There's
to,
another one.
to get the survey actually out. Have you had success now or still
No,
not?
I'm still not getting it.
Oh, sorry. So, maybe it's an item for discussion is when to close the community survey. What we have in here is to close it in a month,
You
but
forward to everyone, Jim?
you could choose to keep it open longer if
Yeah, I
you
think
wish.
closing it before the holidays is probably not good.
We're just gonna keep it open.
You think so?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Again, this was submitted as a draft, so we can change that, to a later date.
I think some of these visioning workshops are gonna take place in the first quarter, so you might as well have the survey open into the first quarter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I-
Keep going. I don't think we have to expend our precious energy on this. I think it's
Okay.
gonna, it's gonna evolve.
Okay.
Like, we don't, there's not a lot to decide here.
Okay, then, again, a goal here is to, following, workshops, we haven't labeled workshops in here, so I think the intent was to have workshops, visioning workshops in January, maybe February, so the idea behind that would be then to have a draft vision and growth policy, January, February timeframe. That may get stretched out a little bit too. The open space survey, we had that occurring a little bit later in February, so there'd be some time between the two surveys, if you will. If
So
makes
that
sense.
might be a time that we actually shut down our survey, right?
Right.
But we gotta see what the response rate is, right? If
Yeah.
the open space plan is
Yeah,
gonna
Jessica.
launch or the questions are gonna launch in February, we might shut ours down then. but
Yeah,
we'll see.
so, you close one down, open the other one up, and then, March 24, the idea would be to have draft LCP goals in that timeframe. And yes, we had open space survey in
Got it now.
February and close that in March. So open for about a month. Again, these timeframes for the surveys, you can extend them longer if you think that's helpful. Sometimes though, people, if they have something for too long, I mean, like all of us,
Yeah,
right? You'll
yeah.
just delay and
You forget
delay,
about it.
so get at it
Still in the
right away.
inbox, further on down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's my recommendation is to, do a lot of publicity around it and try to get people engaged in it and get it done. So April 24 the idea is to have the draft housing production plan completed by then, and that would be final in May. In May also would be the draft open space plan. So we'd have a final housing production plan by May and a draft open space and rec plan by May. Final open space and rec plan by June. A draft local comprehensive plan by September. And then again, if you go to a special town meeting in November, you'd have your final LCP in November. So that's basically a 18-month timeframe right now. Of course, if that gets extended, or you go into the spring, given the fact that there are 3 plans going on at once, I mean, it'd be very reasonable if that takes place. but
It'll
just
shake
depends
out.
on-
It's gonna be
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And
That's the general.
we're
general
like,
sense of
we're,
it.
we're chugging along and David, you have questions, but I feel like our planner is gonna lead us on some of this too.
The single element that I'm most interested in is the housing piece. And I think the two things that are going to educate us are going to be the draft housing needs assessment and the survey responses.
Yep.
And I would like to make sure, are we scheduled to have a meeting with our housing consultant? So
Yes.
when the draft housing needs assessment, there should be some very usable data in there. And once we get the community attitudes in the survey, then I think we can start getting the tools that we can
Could
really
we maybe
focus.
do that? That's a great point, David. Could we maybe get her on the calendar for, say, like February?
Oh, certainly, I mean,
Like,
she's
'cause we'll have
available
some-
before that.
We'll
I mean,
have survey data then, and she, she knows, I think, backwards and forwards the needs. So like, let's put we'll
Absolutely.
put Karen on for February for,
Okay,
Possibly even January, but
okay.
especially if you want to have, like, have
Let's see what we get,
a
yeah,
dialogue and
response, yeah.
input into that.
Yep.
And, with her time frame,
That's a great point.
maybe a little bit sooner, since she
Okay.
already has a
Yeah, so maybe
draft.
January. Yep, I'll ask her what her
Okay.
availability is. That's a
Great.
great point, David.
Is there a specific committee that Karen's working with?
Yes, I can't remember, there are two different efforts
trust.
going now, right?
Yeah,
It's the
right.
trust, there's a housing
There's a-
trust,
And there's a housing committee.
and there's a housing committee, yeah. I think she's working with the housing committee, but she wants to connect to the trust,
The
so
trust has their own
they have their own
consultant.
strategic
Remember,
plan.
we've covered
Right.
this little ground, but I'm
Right.
saying out loud, I have to remind myself, because we covered this with Karen and then with Joe Powers as well, just to remind ourselves that the trust has their own consultant
Mm-hmm.
about big A affordable housing, which then Karen was connecting with, so.
And she specifically asked me, we met earlier this
Yep.
week for an update, and she specifically asked, that she wants to get input on when, would be the appropriate time to connect with them. So she's very aware of it and is, ready and willing to do that, so.
Great,
Okay.
we'll push the envelope a little bit and try and meet with her in January, because we'll have some
Okay.
data then.
That might be helpful, because that way,
Yeah,
that'll give her
yeah.
direction.
Go ahead, Barbara.
On the draft plan, our draft plan,
Yes.
who reviews that, please?
everybody.
Well, it's reviewed, it's reviewed among the committee members. It's also, it's reviewed by the public. It should be made available, publicly available. You can have additional meetings or workshops. It should also be reviewed by town staff. So it's kind of like a pretty wide array of
As I
people.
understood it too, that process too for getting it to town meeting is it's got to be approved by the planning board, recommended to the Board of Selectmen, and then the Board of Selectmen then, that iteration for adopting
And
adopting it at a town meeting setting.
Yeah, that would be the process, right, for formally adopting it at town meeting. So, getting
So
the.
the draft is, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Go
it's
ahead.
okay.
So theoretically, at this point, draft in September? Is that what we
Yes.
said?
Yes,
And then a final in November?
yes. Yeah, that's so that is a pretty tight time.
Like if the
frame.
stars align
very
and the
ambitious.
planets are all there? and-
Yeah, the planets
It's good
are
to
all
have
aligned.
it's good to have dreams. Like, it's great. Then you write the stars and the
Okay, so
moon and all
I-
that.
I- not fast.
Right.
One,
Yeah.
one of the things that when we get to the draft stage, it will probably have been reviewed by town staff before then, and by a number of the committees, but
Right.
before it becomes final, we should probably have just a formal public hearing to take.
That's also a requirement
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Cape Cod Commission
Special town
certification. That's at the final LCP stage, oddly enough. So I recommend that, including the planning board or reaching out to the planning board earlier and often, as you're going through
That's
that
happening. Yeah.
process, is a good idea. In fact, I was invited to attend their meeting
Yes.
next week. So
Yes. So and again, this is
That's a first
in
opportunity.
the spirit of how this all works. There's nothing, the chair of the planning board and we have shared our work. So
Great.
that is and then you were invited formally just to kind of update on the process. But
Yeah.
Duncan is aware specifically of where we're at with the work and the visioning data and things like that.
If periodic updates to the planning board and the select board are really strongly encouraged, just so both boards know what's going on and can participate and make comments as you have, draft materials available, so it doesn't come as a surprise at the end.
Yeah, I think, we'll get our pop-up questions posted, shared, and then the data, like, will be shared, the survey data will be shared.
I wonder if rather than just posting it, if maybe we want to specifically contact the chairman of the selectmen and the
Sure.
chairman of the planning board to say, you know.
Here it is.
Here it is, yeah.
And we'd be happy to, you know, give you updates at your meetings, that's, you know, that way. And,
We
yeah.
did kind of be in September, when Sharon and I were both there, like thematically.
Yeah.
But to your point, it can be formally shared.
Right. So, yeah, definitely encourage outreach to both of those boards during the process, and we'll talk more about that. So these are not going to be up, my.
Evidently not, but
Okay,
we're all
that's
kinda,
our-
we're surviving.
if you
All right,
all
that's,
have
that,
it.
that's the, we're surviving. The timeline, I think the bigger idea thing, which we're kind of right on time, that you wanted to take us through, comes in the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Does everybody have that?
Yep.
Doing okay
Yeah,
with
that
that?
came
great.
right away.
Okay.
Oh, is this timeline being shared?
Well, I was asked to create one that would be, you know, was a little more user-friendly than what was in our proposal, that you could post on your webpage, yes. So,
That's
yes,
okay.
it will be.
Good.
That was the idea. I'll make that one
she's going to
change,
the,
you know, on the, keeping the survey open for a little bit longer, you know, and get it back to Joyce, and then Garrett hopefully can post it.
Oh, well.
I mean, it's,
Well,
Okay.
are we comfortable with drafting the vision and growth policy in January? That seems aggressive.
I agree. I think we all say this. I don't think we have to decide it now with our planner coming and,
No, I
yeah.
understand that,
Yeah.
but if we're posting this, then
I wasn't posting it.
I thought I heard that.
Well, I mean, would you like to have that a little bit later, say February? I mean,
I have enough trouble with my own, I can't fix
I guess I just don't quite I'm respectful of it. I mean, clearly you got to have a plan. I think it seems somewhat, so maybe a more useful way is, maybe we can revisit the timeline in our December meeting with our new town planner, and then we can consider posting it after that.
all right,
As a prospective timeline.
Yes.
okay,
That's-
Yes.
that's,
I think
that's-
Respectful of everybody's perspective and priorities and
Sure.
real life restrictions and
I did
yes.
hear the word posting. So
I was kind of just letting it.
you heard it in a different way.
Right, right. So let's revisit with our new town planner.
So maybe we ought to
December.
think about it with our respective shareholder,
Yes, yes.
how we would
Yes.
adhere to.
Sure,
Yes.
and, yeah, you may decide that really this is, you know, you want to take more time, as you said. You know, our scope of services covers us through November, or that's what we were asked to do, so.
Right, and
we
I
made it out
respect that.
way,
I mean, there's a
but-
professional contract there, you know, like we
But
all
we've
have to.
extended
Sure,
other comprehensive plans, I think,
I
you know,
think it's good to have ambitious timelines.
Right,
yeah.
This
but-
is a little too ambitious.
yes.
I would suggest that regular town meeting in
Yes,
May.
regular town meeting in May would be a
Would be
wonderful,
fine.
would be a wonderful goal, but I'm just
Okay.
trying to not die on this hill being respectful of Tag and Bond's, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
fiscal contract and
Just
things
throwing
like
that
that.
out
Like, yeah, we
It's-
persist.
That's not unreasonable.
Yes.
Unreasonable request
Yes.
at all,
Yeah.
so, okay. So we'll take that under advisement and talk about it at the next meeting, and maybe we can finalize it at the next meeting with the new town planner, so.
May I make another request of Sharon?
Please.
Just since this is my typical thing to do. For December, might you have examples of visioning workshops? I put something out there that I thought of today, but as we're getting ready to run some of these in January and February, if you have examples of what has worked in your past, that might be great to pull into December.
Sure.
And we perhaps can
And
use part of December to.
I would ask to be even a little more specific than that. I think that we've got the big themes. I think the questions for those sessions are going to be, say, around housing, like how do you have stakeholders, housing is one example, or water development or whatever. Like, what would be some good potential workshops for vital, and we know what the vital and controversial issues are. We're trying to get some sense of what are our recommendations around those issues. So how do you have a deliberative session?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you also want to have it somewhat wide relative to the survey, too.
Yeah.
So, because there have been affordable housing working sessions that have driven out ideas. So I think it's got to be respective of the width of the plan, respective of the group, and how do you just drill down to the right level that we're trying to deliver this plan at?
And I'm curious about like how do you set it up for success to have like a deliberative session where people come together and have different opinions. You know?
Well, we can briefly address that now, and then be happy to come with like more specifics next month. But, you know, my first reaction is that start at the high level with the visioning, and have a workshop or two specifically on that, keep it high level, and then have
Well,
perhaps.
what I'm looking
To
for-
interrupt, are we not doing that with the survey and the pop-up questions?
You are, but this is another way of actually getting,
But this is our
More input.
technique. We're doing the survey, the
Yep.
pop-up, so we're getting some of that.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about a workshop to drive out the next level.
Right.
of
I
detail.
Okay,
So
yeah.
what I'm looking for is an example of a workshop instrument. So running the actual physical workshop.
Yes.
What does that workshop look like?
yeah. and
We're
it's-
saying
and
the
it's-
same
Am I
thing.
using a flip
Yeah.
chart? Am I putting yellow stickies? Am I voting with dots?
Yes.
I'd like to come up with one or two examples of a workshop, physical, how do I run it, so that
Yeah.
Jim can run it with his group, I can run it with my group, you know, so we can all pull it
see.
and run it with our respective.
a little bit of nuance to that, because I would push back a little bit that we need a high-level visioning process in January, February. I think we're accomplishing that with what we've been doing. I would be surprised that we're going to hear anything novel
Okay.
by having a high level. I mean, given the, and this is open to, but given the repetition, the consistency, the veracity, like of what is being said in 300 responses from those pop-up cards, I respectfully say that I think a high-level visioning session in January would be a waste of time.
Okay.
I think as we've set out this process and we've got that from the cards, we're drilling down on specific recommendations potentially in the comprehensive plan with the survey. And to elaborate on what Brian is saying, what we're trying to do in those sessions is say, hey, what do we support? I just don't anyone hold me to this, but these are the examples of like, do you support a tree cutting ban? Do you support big A affordable housing? What is what's hard about that? Do you support? Again, these are not my personal opinions. I'm just saying, thoughts of like, do you support or not support, or why not short-term rental the licenses? The real nitty-gritty that may make it into a
You can't-
comprehensive
but
plan.
You can't do that in a group of 50.
Correct. That's hence these are going to be kind of close focus groups. They're one maybe, and I think your question is really, and you don't have to have an immediate answer, Sharon, of how you might do that around something about housing, trees.
I'm going to push back a little bit.
Okay.
On this, because I think that we're going through the survey, both the pop-up and then the
In-depth.
the in-depth survey. We're going to get a certain amount of information from that. I think we need to feed that back to the community, and that
Okay.
you do need to
And
have.
validate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that the point of then like a big community group, hey, this is what we've learned?
Yeah.
Like say in
Yes.
January?
Yes.
And then what is so maybe it's 2 for 1, maybe it's both.
Okay.
Maybe it's both. Then what do you ask? So if you say, this is what we know, this is what you told us, because there's a lot of, accuracy and precision in this, like they're hitting the same things over and over again. So do you show that back? And then, isn't that the natural space to ask then, like, what do you do about it?
Yeah,
Yeah, but that becomes a brainstorming session.
you put more meat on the bone.
Yeah, and then I think you could have more detailed, focused sessions for the people who are interested in those particular topics,
issues.
rather than trying to do it with a room.
Yeah, to your point of 50.
100
So, and not to put you on the spot, because I mean, I think what we're asking you, if those are many tools that maybe we want to hear about a little bit more in December.
Right, and so the reason I discussed the visioning workshop and having an actual workshop is that, you know, ultimately, the committee needs to develop a vision statement and a growth policy. And you could just, you know, use the tools that you've used already, or you could augment that with, yes, you've gotten all this feedback, perhaps you create the, you know, these are the themes that we're hearing. Also, the committee could also hold its own little workshop. I've done this in another community where the committee workshopped a vision statement and had its own work session on what are the things that are, you know, the same ideas. And,
Yeah,
well,
no,
you have to come up with a statement
So,
ultimately,
I will ask a little bit, why? Why do we have to have a vision statement?
well, that's part of the PowerPoint.
Okay, take us.
Segue. So,
I mean, I get it, you know, in strategic planning, I mean, I'm joking. I mean, I understand a little bit, I understand the point of a vision statement, but like when we're talking about some granular issues that the community is looking for some guidance on in a comprehensive plan.
correct, and those, as I think Margot said, you know, focus groups like, or you could have, you could have a visioning session that has, you know, sort of broad visioning and then breakout groups. So you can do that in one session, you could do it in separate sessions, you know, breakout groups on specific topics. You know, that way you could take a deeper dive on a specific topic. We could look through some of the responses you're getting. And,
Yeah, I guess we don't
different ways to skin a cat.
have to let's digest a little bit. I think
Well, we're here and happy to assist you in any way you
Yeah,
decide that you
But
want
it's
to
not
do
assistance,
your
I
outreach,
think
so.
we need a
yeah.
little leadership. I mean, maybe I was pushing in the wrong direction.
no,
so I appreciate
no, and it's
like your-
it's a nuanced.
With the survey, once we get the survey, this deeper dive survey back, we're gonna get that much more meat on the bone.
Yeah.
So we can, like, I'm gonna use my small business
Yeah.
as an example. We could put that in front of whoever, you know, comes up, you know, from that audience and get them to react to it. They can put some more, from their perspective, a little bit more meat on that bone.
On
And then we-
what? On which again? On what?
The small business group, they can react to all the pillars that we put into the survey,
Yeah,
right? So the survey is fairly wide.
yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
leave it at that.
I guess my question back to the those who have the professional planning experience in our committee is I respect the process of a vision statement. You having been through a lot of those processes before in other, you know, my own professional capacity, you spend a lot of time on words, values, that's all important. And, you know, mission statement, in the purpose of the comprehensive plan, how much time should we be really spending on a vision statement as opposed to specific, in your own opinion, specific recommendations in the plan around what we know are important issues in the community?
Well, I agree with Sharon that we need a vision statement. So how much time do we spend on it? I don't know. But I think we should get to one after we've gotten the survey.
Could we, okay, I would like to maybe put it on the agenda for December. Can we look at the last few examples of vision statements?
I was actually going to suggest that, you know, December, we bring some cookies and candy and have a little workshop of our own.
Sure.
So around vision statement.
Sure.
Just
Okay.
to, you know, and that could be a component is to look at your last vision
Look
statement.
at the old
Well,
ones.
can I suggest, I think the 2011 one was a very slanted vision statement. So I think in addition to that one, we should have the 2001, And I think we should have some of the more recent ones. I've been particularly interested in
From other
Brewster,
towns.
some of the other towns that have recently done theirs. You know,
Yeah.
4 or 5 of the
Sure.
Cape Cod
Sure.
ones,
Yeah.
plus our last 2
Yeah, sure.
would be
Mhm.
about what I
That
would
would-
suggest.
And they are, you know, very different. You
I
know,
know.
it's really interesting. Some are very short, some are longer.
Yeah.
Some took a lot of deliberation, so you ask how much time. Some didn't take a lot of
I
deliberation.
guess I'm just, thinking if we're working on behalf of the community, I'm deeply respectful of the process. I think we should do it in December, look at the old ones. Sharon, if you could help us come up with the old ones.
Yep,
And,
we can do that.
and the ones from the surrounding towns. And then maybe it's not going to be that hard. My instinct is that the people the citizens of Harwich that we're trying to serve here, I'm sure a vision statement is important, but we're also really trying to give some deep thought to hard issues in town that maybe aren't encompassed by a vision statement.
Understood, but
Yeah.
it's like one of the requirements for certification of your
Yeah, I get it.
plan.
Yeah.
And it's also a high-level statement that, believe it or not, people do keep going back to. And if they don't refer to a lot of things in the plan, they will go back to the vision and your growth policy.
Yeah,
This
right.
is a new element, will be your growth policy. And that is a very important policy of the town to put forward. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Ed?
Well, as this whole night's conversation has gone, one of the interesting things, a lot of the stuff we're talking about, housing and wastewater, and, coastal resilience issues, and infrastructure, and recreation, and open space, all this has an incredibly large price tag on it. And so there was an earlier comment that possibly, having somebody contact the finance director wasn't really within our purview. I think that the more I think about this,
Sure.
not only for them, but in terms of sort of getting a sense of financial capacity that the Conservation Trust has, and what we can expect out of, over the next 10 years, assistance on wastewater from the state, all of these things.
I was kind of notching it as that's
Yeah.
with our, not to, with our planner, and to the point of making this relevant, which we've all talked about that repeatedly. How does this not just get put on a shelf, right? Okay, the validity and the heart of a vision statement, but my sense of was also, of course the finances are important with the planner. Okay, so we have a plan for December
Okay,
for our
that-
statement.
I think that'll be great. It'd be, and we can kind of practice a workshop, if you will, kind of amongst ourselves. We can have flip
That'd be good.
charts. I'll be your
That'd be good.
facilitator,
And the focus is going to be on our vision statement
Yeah.
for our comprehensive
kind of be
plan.
like a little dry run for what a workshop might be like. Yeah.
We
In
don't have to do
small.
workshops. That's not the point. That wasn't my point.
I
That wasn't my
understand what
point.
you're,
It was
I
going
understand it,
forward,
yeah.
are we, validating, and to Margot's point.
Yeah.
There's different techniques to
Mm-hmm.
doing it, but I think what I've almost come full circle, we need to be in agreement as to how we're gonna do our respective routes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd like to do is maybe by the end of that December meeting, kind of come to some sort of agreement as to how we're gonna handle our groups and our visioning workshops. And
Just to sort of pull a couple of these things together, I'm thinking if we have about 6 vision statements, 2 of our most recent ones, 4 other communities, if we have the results of the pop-up in whatever the clearest vision is,
Yeah.
the version, so we get that sense of the community.
You may even have
And
some
I-
preliminary deep dive survey
And as
data,
far as
but
the
yeah.
deep dive survey
Yeah.
results, I don't know if we should really do it on a preliminary basis. That's my one question.
Yeah, okay. No, I mean, I think it'll just be, I think that the survey is specific is pointing
So
towards
you think we
specific.
could do that
I
one
think
too?
you have enough in the
Recommendation.
pop-up to do the vision.
I would agree.
There's enough in the pop-up.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The pop-up, the vision is a fairly.
High level statement.
Yeah, I agree with you.
and if that's the way the committee feels, then, we could take the data from the pop-up, visioning, and create a sort of a straw man, if you will, vision statement, from that, and even vet that with the community. So, yeah.
As
it's
much
like-
as you can do
can-
for us before, I think we would be grateful. Yeah, for December.
Okay.
I think we'd be appreciative of that.
Okay.
My sense is like, of course, we're like passionate about the words and stuff like that, but the ideas are there. So I don't think we want to like get too much bogged down by that. So as much as you could facilitate, we would be
Okay.
great. We would be very grateful.
Sure. Okay, very
And
good.
just to your question, Brian, and then we'll let Sharon with the last 2 minutes. You have done so much visioning already, so much engagement with the business community. To clarify, what you're asking is how to go back, or you're thinking about how to go back January, February, March, April, and say, hey, this is what we're thinking of recommending. What do you think about that? How do you do it? Is that what you're asking?
It's still kind of open-ended.
Okay.
So we've really just left it at, we're going to do visioning, so they
Yeah.
don't know which way we're gonna do it, and it could be that we carve it up into multiple sessions, and it could be, it could be based on the themes, or it could be just one night with all small business. So I don't know that they have a picture in their mind one way or the other, so I think it's still somewhat flexible.
Okay. No, I just to pick up Pete's point, like about the real estate. He is sort of developers. That's an example of like, hey, we're kind of checking in. We're working. This is what your perspective is. And for example, that might be something you might then
Yeah.
go back to.
Yeah.
This is what the committee's
I've been
recommending.
attending their pop-ups,
Yeah.
but there aren't that many people at them. I'd like to do one
Yeah.
which is focused with
Yeah.
them, just so we hear them, but I think we're doing enough with the pop-up survey and with the email that went out to them with the survey, that I feel like we're touching them.
Okay. I would agree
So-
with you. I was just clarifying. Go ahead, Jim.
So, it's interesting, I think it'd be hard to keep going back and say, but maybe in the end, what would be most helpful to do is to sort of reach out to people and find out what they think are most important or they think are high priorities. But then going back eventually and almost having one more survey or one more thing. How many people think this is the most important? How many people think that's the most important? And then when you do the report, you can say, we talked to people, we sort of engaged. Here's what we think is most important. But it's also interesting to look at what the people think. And 40% of the people thought this was the most important. 20% thought that might get thrown away, or it might.
I think you're sort of reiterating what Margot was saying, potentially, that this larger visioning event may sort of validate our work so
But
far.
so the
It is-
numbers at the end might
Well,
be
as
off.
far as, as far as the validation part of it, I wouldn't go back to another level of survey. I
Right.
would do the visioning
Yeah,
workshops.
Yeah, that's right.
That's fine,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Sharon, in this lovely PowerPoint you gave us, we've
It's-
accomplished some other things. Tell us what we should be thinking about here.
Yes, so, I put together a few slides really to just sort of, kind of give you the framework, if you will, or the context for the local comprehensive plan, which is the regional policy plan. And ultimately your goal is to get a plan that is certified by the Cape Cod Commission is consistent with the regional plan. So I thought I would give you like a little bit of background on sort of what that regional plan, this most latest one, is focused on, not kind of technically, but just sort of, again, high level, and give you a few sort of thoughts to think about this evening, and then we'll come back next month and talk about it more. So the second slide is really the regional policy plan, vision, and growth policy. So we've been talking a lot about vision statement and growth policy. So at the regional level, and the vision in the regional policy plan goes on longer than this, but just wanted to cut to the chase, that it's really, the commission is seeking a future of vibrant, sustainable, and healthy communities, and protected and natural and cultural resources. The second part of this is about growth, the growth policy, the regional growth policy. And so the commission's effort at the regional level is that growth should be focused in centers of activity, and that is defined in the plan, and areas supported by adequate infrastructure and guided away from areas that must be protected for ecological, historical, or other reasons. Then there's like a third level of this that went further, so that's pretty consistent with past regional policy plans. Margot's familiar with those. It went a little further to say that development should also be responsive to context. So this is like different places, different, what the commission is calling place types. So there are, in the bottom of this slide, there are what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 different place types. So it's also acknowledging that within the region and within the town, at what you're thinking about is that there are also place types, and that development or resource protection or the way land is thought about and developed might be different in some of these different place types. So they range from natural areas, which is the most ecologically sensitive, barrier beaches, dunes, and so forth, areas that, should probably not be developed or shouldn't be developed, through rural development, sort of very sparsely developed areas, up through suburban, historic areas, maritime areas, which Harwich has some of those, and then community activity centers. These are the centers of activity where probably the most
I got questions about that one.
yeah, I'm sure you have many questions about it, and we could probably talk all night about how that was defined.
We're just not there yet.
Yeah.
These are beautiful statements, which are like magnificent. What keeps us from saying the vision for the future? I'm just tossing this out here. Like, this is really high level. Our vision for the future of Harwich is a region of vibrant, sustainable, and healthy communities and protected natural and cultural resources, like as a vision statement.
Well, but you're talking about your community, not the whole region, so
Yeah, but you
the
could, I mean,
comprehensive plan-
I would just plant in everyone's mind. These are pretty high level, well thought out, we can take a lot of this about, if we have to come up with a growth statement, we can make this Harwich specific, but there are important
I
ideas
just
in
want-
here.
Yes.
I want to give one example of where I don't want us to go for a number of months. Right now, according to the regional plan, if you look at the community activity centers,
Yeah,
then West Harwich, as far as the Herring River, just because it's attached to Dennisport, is treated as more of a community activity center than Harwich Center,
Yeah.
or even East Harwich.
yes.
So
Okay.
we should not spend our time responding to the regional plan's take on this. We should develop our own.
Exactly, yes. This was done at the regional scale, and, I should preface that the methodology for creating these place types and how they were identified, I worked on it, I'm very familiar with it, and it was at the 15-town regional scale.
I understand that.
So, yes, individual communities, like how you decide, where your activity centers should be, that is a community decision. But it is a decision the community should make. Where do you want future growth and development to go? So I'm just providing this is what the regional framework is. The commission wants the towns to consider the place types, not adopt them, wholeheartedly, but consider these place types in development of your comprehensive plan. So I'm just putting that out there for you to think about as we start this process of visioning, looking at where Harwich is appropriate community activity centers.
Personally, I fully support the place types. The idea that some areas should be more fully developed than others. I totally support that. It just gets bogged down in the details. But again, I don't want us to spend our time saying, oh, the regional plan got this area wrong versus this area.
It's also,
I just want us to
It's
build.
a great way to lose faith of the bigger deliberation. Like, well, what do you mean you can't put that there? You know what I mean? It becomes very territorial.
Yeah, it's really meant to be, again, and that this is another sort of topic or course that you could take in your workshops, is to where are places in Harwich where would you like to see, like either more compact development or mixed use or those types of things? Where is it
intensity of
appropriate?
Activity. More intensity of activity.
Right,
And we'll
right.
have the data from the survey of like, okay, say there's a preference for a certain type of, you put it so beautifully in the survey, what was the word? Prioritized housing. You did. No, that was first rate of like, so if there's a sentiment that this is a majority opinion for, we support this quote priority housing, then potentially where, what place type is that?
Or, you know, in what areas of town might it be more appropriate for denser housing or mixed use, that type
This
of question.
is controversial, you know, because people live everywhere.
Right,
And maybe an easier example to think of is like, say, we ask a question around what are priorities for economic development? And so say, you know, like small business or something
Right.
like that, that might be more easily thought of in terms of per place type. I think we should be very aware of talking about, you know, the villages, and there are a lot of opinions, and
Well, I will tell you that.
we have to have some
Yeah,
thoughts,
the-
but
yeah, this is,
Yeah.
this is part of your deliberation
Charge,
going
yes.
forward is to, again, consider these place types, consider how you want to apply them to Harwich. And not necessarily to be wedded to, you know, exactly what the regional policy plan says in terms of where they are mapped at the regional scale. So I included the next few
I
slides
shouldn't have
are,
even brought that up.
No,
I
it's-
appreciate it, dude.
it's
No, I
totally
appreciate
fine.
it because
Yeah.
what a way to lose faith in the process if we wade into like, oh, this type of housing should go here, right? That's a way to, but you have to have some opinion, right? That's the whole point of the plan.
Right,
Well-
it is, and I would just say, I agree with you that you have to look at your own town and, you know, figure out what works for Harwich, but I also think it's important to look at what's happening at the boundaries. You know, that we can't pretend like we're an island.
I agree.
You know, you know.
true.
Right,
True.
Dennisport does run into West Harwich.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like on a practical level.
Right.
yes.
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 So not to get, you know, not to
Okay.
get bogged down in, you know, so the next few slides are, you know, I just took screenshots of, from, on the commission's website, they do identify, the only areas that the commission mapped in this, policy plan update were community activity centers and industrial activity centers, and then natural areas. So there were the only three that were mapped at that scale. So that's as far as the regional policy plan went. Slide 4, yes, it's just a zoomed in showing what they mapped at the regional scale. And if you're interested in how they did it, why, and, you know, how they did it, I could tell you all about that, but I'm sure that would maybe be a little too much detail. So slides 3, 4, and 5 are really just some quick screenshots of what the commission identified for Harwich at the regional scale, and again, keeping that in mind.
And I could make exactly the same
Yeah.
comment that David did, that
Right.
that local knowledge will
Yes.
make those areas
Yes,
quite
quite
Oh,
different.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Margot and I are just whispering
Yeah.
here about, you look at the
Right.
Herring River, and it's an enormous watershed, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Based
So-
on like,
But part of it is coming up with the right words. If in our survey, we didn't get hung up on big A affordable versus little a affordable and said, well, let's look at prioritized
yeah.
housing. So the same example can apply
We may
to
be
growth
able
centers.
to, we may be able to.
Growth centers are great,
Yeah,
but Harwich Center is very different
Oh, yeah.
than East Harwich, than West Harwich.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna, but we
Yeah.
want to encourage certain things in all of them, so
Right.
we're gonna have to need more carefully sculpted
Yeah, so
language.
this is potentially very flammable, like,
Well, so again, you know, that's just, as you're going through your process, I'll be reminding you of this, and it's just sort of something to keep thinking about that as the plan gets developed. You know, when you get to the end of the process and the commission's certifying the plan, they're going to take a look at, did you
have to use
consider
this
these
language.
things?
Yeah.
The next sort of level after that is, what the plan is based on is called Cape Cod systems. So the regional plan is set up into 3 systems: natural systems, built systems, and community systems. It's an organizing principle. It does not have to be Harwich's LCP organizing principle, but it is one way to organize the plan. And then slide 7 just shows 7, 8, and 9 show the topics under these systems. So natural systems include topics like water resources, ocean resources, wetlands, wildlife, plant habitat, and open space. The built systems are community design. They put coastal resiliency in here, and I've sort of pushed back a little bit on that one because I've been breaking coastal resiliency into adaptation and mitigation. So we've been doing it a little bit differently, but that's how they have it set up: capital, facilities, and infrastructure. So things of the built environment, transportation, energy, and waste. And then finally, community systems. They have cultural heritage, economy, and housing in those that last set of systems.
A placeholder for you that I think that we are really open to, and please help us with. I think we've always said that, like, we kind of have our finger on the pulse. We're not perfect, but we generally know what's going on and have an open enough mind to, like, if you can help, as we are deliberating and writing this plan, taking that and putting it into this language, or if this framework, obviously that's our role, right? Is to provide the Harwich specific, just like we did with the survey.
Yeah.
What's relevant here? There's not an art museum in Harwich, so we don't ask about that, But like, but we asked about arts in an appropriate way. So please help us with that in terms of categorizing, because this backwards and forwards about like what we need to hit to be certified.
Yeah, and the data you're gathering now will be really helpful in identifying the priorities for Harwich. So not every, these issues, you want to touch on them, but are they all priorities right now, in this plan? Maybe some are higher priorities than others,
No, we're
Yeah.
getting them into, we're getting
Right.
them. We asked about transportation, stuff like that, but to Ed's point of like, probably more work to be done is capital facilities and infrastructure, like the financing of this, that is something, but
Yeah,
we'll get
that's
there.
going to be a
but-
big component of it.
Yeah.
So slide 10 is just so you know that there are 14 goals in the regional plan, and they're, again, organized around these same systems, natural, built, and community systems. The LCP is required for consistency to have goals that are consistent with the 14 goals. They don't have to be exactly the same language, but you're required to cover the topics and have goals in those areas. So this slide's a little bit hard to see, but I just, again, screenshots of what are the goals under natural systems, built systems, and community systems. And in later meetings, what we'll do is we'll take these goals and then line them up. We can do an exercise where we line them up with goals from your previous plan or 2 plans ago, and see how those goals aligned or didn't, or start from scratch if you want. But it is helpful. I think other towns have saw that it's helpful to take a look at their previous plan for what their goals were in that plan as sort of a benchmark. And that's all I really kind of wanted to cover tonight, was just that this is sort of the framework for your work going forward. Not that this is all of it, but it's just kind
it's
of
helpful.
the sort of beginning steps of thinking about what are the things the commission will be looking for.
Go ahead, Jim.
What I don't quite get with this format is how it relates, at least to my reality of living here for the last 40 years, or
Sure.
being here for 40 years. If I think back to the last 10 get-togethers with people I probably went to, 5 of which would probably be with summer folks and 5 with year-round folks, I would almost always hear these 4 things. I don't see how they fit in here. Is we don't want to live in a big box town. We don't want, where Stop and Shop is to have. Everybody feels that way. Whether they have a $4 million house or a $400,000 house, but and then affordable housing for workers is a must. It's the right thing to do because people should get that, and it's the right thing to do for the $4 million houses because they need somebody to take care of their house. The third thing is we should have attention to children, the needy, and older adults. And then we need to keep the history and, you know, the great things that make it
List.
special. And I don't see how you get that into this framework. If that's,
No, it's a good question.
I think it fits.
you know.
They're in the goals.
You think it fits?
They're in the goals.
I do
They're in
too.
cultural heritage and housing.
I think we gotta draw the connectors.
I think
but
some
I
of
do
it
think
is the you know, every field has a surgeon, right?
Right.
You know, I'm a surgeon,
For-
right? If I'm talking to another surgeon,
For us, that doesn't mean.
they talk to me in a specific way about a case. I know very much if it's a family medicine doctor or if it's an internist who's, you know, and never mind outside of medicine, right? I think what we're adopting is this planning language, and we're bringing the spirit of it, and Sharon is helping us. This is how this field communicates.
Yeah, and all those topics that you mentioned, I mean, they're absolutely critical, and they will be covered in your plan.
And
And
they'll
it's,
somehow fit into.
Go to the
Yes.
last page. They're actually in those goals in the very last page.
Do you-
The
this here?
Community. Read.
I gotta read that.
I mean, I think
How
that
you-
traditionally, the
yeah.
commission has done this very well, right?
Yeah.
But this
But it-
is.
but how you structure your plan is really up to you. That's the message I
And
wanna
yeah,
send.
I think,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's,
we had an outline in the
Yeah.
scope of work that we did
Yeah.
with Time Bond.
yeah.
For the topics that we were gonna cover in the plan. So we have to cover all those topics, but we don't have to do it like this.
No, you
You know,
don't.
we don't,
No.
frankly, I don't, these systems don't make any sense to me.
It's, you know, and that's, yeah.
It's just one way of talking about
It's
it. I mean,
one
you
way-
have-
it
you have
is.
a rose, you can paint
Yeah.
it, you
It's
can
one
paint
way
it
of
as a
talking
pointillist,
about
you can take a picture, you can paint it in
Yeah,
an oil
building
painting.
blocks is another,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, Brewster adopted building block. I'll bring some examples next time of how different towns have like tackled the vision statement, how they've like, you know, Brewster had a process that was going on long before we were involved in it, so, they had a complete visioning process that was, preceded the LCP. But, they used the building blocks, and they stuck with that all the way through, which works for them. So it's really what works for you, you know, it's,
Also, you know, the regional policy plan is really dealing at a much higher level than towns are, because they don't
Broader.
have
Right,
the
it's
it is
abstract.
broad.
It's broader, it has,
the responsibilities that town have specifically. I mean, they're not
it has
faced
to
with
be
the
a little bit one size fits all.
problems of funding education in every year and funding not only making your transportation system work, but making sure that you have enough money to fill the potholes, you know?
Actually, I see all of my Chat GPT in here.
With that.
Could you
No,
write it all
sold
up?
him on it. With that, I'm gonna
No,
close my
no,
laptop
no,
now. My
thank
job's
you,
done.
thank you, Sharon, because
kidding.
that's a very, I think it's a very high level reminding us, we're getting the spirit, we're getting the emotions, we're getting it, and, you know, your expertise is how to put this into something that communicates in this field, and we also want it to be useful, so like.
Yeah, and we've only just begun,
Right,
so.
right. So thank you, Barbara, then we'll close.
I'm sorry to try to reinvent this wheel, but, so I can get these minutes right. Because I'm all over the place. So explain to me again, no, we're going live November 13th?
Yeah, I mean, yes,
Okay,
so
okay,
the
okay, say-
survey date.
November
Say some-
13th-ish.
Okay,
Ish,
and
yes.
how are people finding out about this?
We are distributing it the same way we've distributed the pop-up card. So like I will send you guys all the link. You can share with everybody. We will post it on the socials. We will make a printed copy.
Okay, so,
We'll the same path.
We'll contact the paper.
Correct.
okay, so
The
my-
same
I guess
path
my,
that we've done the pop-up question.
okay, so we had talked 2 months ago, September, about trying to get into the database that the town had for the tax
I
record.
have
blah, blah.
tried.
And we've gotten nowhere, okay,
It's to be decided.
okay, so are we, okay,
I will, once we have the survey in hand, I will revisit that.
Yeah.
I want to
Okay.
put that in the minutes.
well, I mean, only reason is that when we got, you know, our Christmas stroll, I mean, the
Yeah.
first weekend,
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we've got something out there
It's great.
for,
It's great, actually. It's a great request of Tig and Bond. Since
That
we
weekend.
can make a card, we know we can do
I was
cards.
gonna
Can,
say.
can we have another card
I was just gonna suggest. how
for
about
the
another
in-depth
card?
survey. Could we have it a
Yes.
different color? Could we have it like red, but I don't want to print it because then we might not be able to see it. Could it be like peppermint pink?
I think, you know,
Yep.
And something like at the stroll or
Yes.
each of the different.
if we could get something like
Sure.
you just held up,
Could we have another one of those,
Maybe
but with the
even-
live survey?
maybe even in a little bit smaller, so they could be on like the counter at the community center.
Sure.
They could be on the counter at in
Library.
the
Great.
administrator's office
Or-
at the library,
Chamber of
Chamber
Commerce,
of
2 or
Commerce.
4. Yep.
And the link would be to the in-depth survey,
You know, little table,
Yeah.
you know, in the restaurant.
not to the
tray,
pop-up.
tall
No, I
tables.
understand.
Yeah.
Destroy the old link.
So pop-ups are finished.
What kind of? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
you
they're
know,
still
we're not
out there.
officially closing it down, but our focus is evolving.
Right, no, that's fine.
You
Okay.
don't want to take these away.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
Right.
But if we have any stragglers, I'm not shoveling it down, but.
If anybody wants this for their recreation room, they're welcome to have it.
Is that an okay request
Of
from you?
course.
Yeah, because the big, I think this is all the weekends in the Cape, but like all the towns in the Cape, the second, third, fourth, like
the
that's
strolls.
the strolls. Yes, it's a big
Oh, yeah,
public
Actually,
push.
it's
First,
December
second,
1,
third.
1, 2, and 3.
this
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
December.
Every event, Christmas event in Harwich or
Great
holiday
idea.
event in Harwich is happening like Saturday, December 2nd.
The taste of
That's
Harwich.
yeah, that's a great idea, and that's totally doable.
Tends also to be the last, you know, starting to be the end of, for those. quote,
Seasonal,
year-round-
seasonal people.
Well, year-round residents who
Snowbirds.
disappear for 3 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
You don't get them by then.
That's
they're
why
out
I
of
was
town.
kind of drawing the line in the sand about this is the survey. We're doing it.
Okay, we'll get it done and
Any other
Okay.
burning business? Can we get a motion to?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you.
No, okay.
Um,
We got
Ed,
a roll call it.
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Aye.
Marco, Joyce, aye. Jim,
Brian,
Brian,
aye.
Bernadette,
Barb, aye.
Barbara, Pete. Cool.
Aye,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
the next meeting, guys, is December 5th?
Ed
Thank you.
seconded.
5th, same time, same bat channel. Our focus is going to be on the vision statement. Thank you, Sharon, for your help. We're very grateful for your expertise. And I will send an email about all our meetings in 2024, which are going to remain the first Tuesday of the month. We're all signed
This
up.
one I'm going to have to go home